Greetings, gentle ladies and men, or should I say, ladies and gentlemen. Today we'll be learning how to use the Paths tool. This is a beginner's level tutorial and you would get a lot from it if you're just getting into Inkscape. So Inkscape is a software for doing some vector illustrations, vector designs, flyers, logos, business cards. You could use it to design a lot. So this is a powerful tool. Shortcut for it in Inkscape is letter B on your keyboard. So most of the actions done on Inkscape is by clicking and dragging. So if you clicked on your Bezier curves tool, you could click along and around the canvas anywhere on your viewpoint. You would make straight lines, just clicking and moving the mouse and clicking and moving the mouse. To end and release this line, double click, that ends it and completes the shape for you. Every shape in Inkscape has a fill and a stroke. So currently we only have a fill and no stroke. Now let's learn a little about fills and strokes. Go to Object, then go to Fill and Stroke. Ctrl Shift F on your keyboard. So I'm going to press Ctrl Shift F. That brings up fill and stroke. The fill here is blue for me, so if you adjusted the fill to black, adjusted the slider for lighting, it gives it black. Then the stroke, if we give it a stroke, let's say with the flat color here, and along this there are different types of color, but that will be in another tutorial. This is a flat color and this is what we're using for now. Let's make that green, or let's make it red for more visibility. So we have a black shape with a red-ish outline. Parts could be used to create and customize shapes in Inkscape. So if we turned off the fill, no fill, we're only left with the stroke, the outline of the path. And with this you can actually change the stroke style here. So under your fill and stroke dialog, you could change the width of the stroke. So increasing it would increase the shape, the stroke width. So if we gave it 10, for example, that will make it really bold. If we gave it 5, to make it smaller. Let's work with 2. So let's keep that aside. Scroll to another part of your screen. So I'm using a 3-button mouse, so the middle mouse button can be clicked and dragged to move around your viewpoint, so around your canvas. So I believe that would be helpful for someone. Okay, let's think of creating Z, letter Z. So imagine your head. Right now we have no reference and we are clicking and dragging. Double click to end, or press enter to end. Enter on your keyboard, ends it Z with our red stroke and no fill. So if we went ahead and filled it up, we would have a black fill. It starts from the end point to the start point and fills it with the fill color. If we change it to green, for example, we have a Z with a doesn't really look like a Z at the moment, but let's turn it off at the moment. Let's make another simple letter N. Click, click, click. I believe that is what letter N looks like, capital letter N. Let's make another one, letter P, with sharp corners. Sometimes it has a curve, but let's make that for now. That's ZNP. Let's say you wanted to make a letter E, for example. Click, click, click. We have made one of the strokes and something else to finish it up. Let's click somewhere else and click, enter, finishes up. Then you have letter E. It's more like writing with your hand, so you just follow your mental image. What other letter should we do? Let's go with letter U, capital letter U. Then finish it up with enter or double click. Then we have this. So basically you know how to make straight lines with parts. Let's say you just wanted to make letter I. Click, click, enter. That finishes up. Now let's go over to looking at parts in depthly. These are kind of mathematical functions. Let's try editing them. You have a path. Now let's go to the select tool. The select tool we use to select and to transform. Each of these are selectable. If you clicked on them, you could change its size, reduce its size, shorten it, make it taller, etc. Ctrl Z to return. Now we can select each of our parts. Every individual part can be selected as a whole. Let's look at the edit paths by nodes. So if you wanted to edit every node on this part, you could actually use the select paths by nodes tool. Then something else to understand is that parts are made of nodes and nodes have handles. Okay, what do we mean by that? Let's go to it. Let's select the nodes. We have noticed the change in the type of the icon of the tool you're using. When you click on it, you could see nodes. Everywhere you clicked previously would show as a node, like as a corner. You see, you could actually move each of the nodes around. So let's say you wanted to make a stylish letter Z. This looks cool to me. Or even if you wanted to delete a node, but let's not delete that for now. Let's see. Every single node can be adjusted. Now there's something that we are going to look into. Currently these nodes, I said before that nodes have handles. Currently these nodes do not have handles. They are basically corners, sharp, very sharp corners, and there is no curve to it. To make a curve, you would actually need the handles. Let's go back to our parts, Bezier curves tool, and instead of just clicking at the point and moving our mouse around like this, let's try to click once, click somewhere along the left side and drag. You see that the curve comes up, and let's move. It retains the curve because of this handle. Double click somewhere here, and that looks like letter C. Now let's go to this edit parts tool. If we selected one of these nodes, you could see the handles. Each of these handles can be adjusted. And something else to note is that nodes have types. Nodes have types. We'll look into that later. This node is a different type from this node. This one has a handle, this one doesn't have a handle. So you could actually edit and move this. Instead of a C, we could have like a letter number 2. Alright, now let's do something more. Let's create number 3 with our Bezier curves tool. Click once, click and drag to make a curve. Click once to make a sharp corner, and click and drag to make a curve. Double click to end. More like letter number 3. Let's make number 2. Click once to make a point, click and drag to make a curve, click and drag again to make a curve, click once to make a corner, click once to make a corner, hit enter. That is like number 2. Now let's make something like number 5. Click once to make a point, click once to make another point, click once to make another point, click and drag to make a curve, double click to end. Let's make number 6. Click once to make a point, click and drag to make a curve, click and drag to make a curve, click and drag to make a curve. Okay, you get the point. Double click to end. Now let's go to number 7. Click once to make a point, click once to make a point, click and drag to make a curve. Double click to make number 7. Now the most complex one, number 8. Now what are you made of, friend? Click once to make a point, click and drag to make actually in primary school people actually find it hard to write number 8, so it's it could be the same or maybe not in graphic design. So click and drag to make a curve, click and drag to make a curve, click and drag to make a curve. There are a lot of curves. Click and drag, click and drag. Now to return, if you return to the beginning, it completes it for you, finishes it up. Now we have number 8. Now that doesn't look really nice to me. Let's try to make number 8. Click once to make a point, click and drag to make a curve, 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 click once to end. Now we have number 8, number 8. Let's make number 9. Click once to make a point, click and drag to make a curve, click and drag to make a curve, click and drag to make a curve, double click to end. Now we have number 9. Alright, now we are more like those in kindergarten learning how to read and write. No, just the writing part. You already know that, and let's get to it. Let's examine each of these parts using our subselect tool. Let's go to number 8. It has every single place we clicked and dragged or clicked once has a node, and each of these nodes could either have a handle or be a single node on themselves. So if you wanted to edit, let's say, this area of the number, click on one of the nodes around that side, and you could actually modify it. Let's say you wanted and something else, you could actually drag the path itself instead of clicking on the node. So I could actually drag this line along and, you know, adjust it. Let's say I wanted to make it more perfect looking. Okay, and notice something over here. There's something I want you to notice over here. You see, this node has a handle. Nodes usually have handles on one side and the other on the other side, but notice this one has just one handle. That means this side is only dependent on the handle from this node. So if I adjusted this one doesn't have a node to work with it. So how do you bring up a node at this point? You can actually drag, and you can see a node, a handle comes off from it, and you can actually change whatever you wanted along that node. You know, don't worry if it gets too technical, you would understand it, believe me, you would understand it. So let's adjust our number 8 and make it look awesome, because why not? Now let's, after modification, let's fill it with something. Give it a fill, flat color. Let's make that bright yellow. All right, now let's see how these parts behave when they are filled up. Remember, the fills start from the beginning of the part to the end of the part. So we see number 3 is filled with that, and instead of filling them one by one, let's select all of them here. Just click and drag with your select and transform objects tool. You could just click and drag outside on your canvas along over all of the parts, and you can select all of them and give them a fill. So all of them are filled up with the same yellow color. Let's reduce, increase, let's leave it like that. You can see it starts from the beginning to the end. For that, beginning to end, beginning to end, beginning to end, beginning to end. This one completes it. All right, because the ends meet. Now, what else do we have to learn? Understanding nodes. How do you work with nodes? Let's see this. Let's make number actually, let's make letter P. Go to your parts tool, letter P. Click and drag, double click to end. Now let's look at this. Let's remove the fill and leave our stroke with 2. Now let's examine each of these nodes using your select edit parts by nodes tool. You can actually look at this. This has no handles. This has handles. Now, if each of these handles can be moved independently, we can actually make this look like that. Actually, let's undo that using our select tool. Let's copy and paste. Copy, paste, paste. Now let's, using our edit parts by nodes tool, let's edit the handle of this, shorten that one, see what it looks like. This is P, 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 and P. Alright. Now let's try making something complex. I'm gonna have let's use I'm using the shortcuts now, the parts, Bezier curves tool. Let's do letter number 2. Let's fill it up. Let's give it a bit of blue. Return to our select tool. Now let's edit the nodes. And let's say you want to move this node, but as you can see, this other node is moving at the same time. How do you move that independently? If you go up to this, make selected nodes corner, make selected nodes smooth, make selected nodes symmetric, make selected nodes auto smooth. So let's say you want to make that selected node a corner. Making it a corner means you can actually edit each of the handles independently. You can actually make that. You know, previously when we moved it just like this one, they were both moving at the same time. So with this, you can actually change what the handle looks like. Parts behave pretty much like other objects in Inkscape. You can actually send them down, bringing them up, lower, bring forward. You can use your select tool to move them around. You can actually fill them with different fills, even without a gradient fill or with radial gradient fill. You can actually do a lot with them. They can be edited. Now, a lot of my designs I use Inkscape. I use the parts tool to edit them. Let's say you can actually change the width of the stroke. Let's give that 10. Nice. Let's convert this rectangle to letter P. I believe this exercise would really boost your skill. Let's say you have this rectangle, upright rectangle. Let's edit it and make it a letter P. Let's copy and paste that and drag it over to this side. So how do you actually, and then you could actually go ahead to design another shape using the path. But what if you wanted to change this and make it letter P instead? Using your select tool or hitting N on your keyboard, come here along the path, along the border. You can see the icon changes. It looks like a grab. With it, you can actually drag this point. You see? So, but if we double clicked on that, it actually creates another node. With that, we can actually, let's say we can move this to make it look like P, but that isn't looking like P. Let's undo that, and let's make corner from that node. Make selected nodes corner. You can see it actually changes to a kind of square or rhombus, and if we drag this, you can see it moves on its own. without affecting the other part of the design. Now let's adjust that. And that is looking more like letter P. And let's, using our Bezier curves tool, let's make a small D in the middle to give it more of the feel of letter P. And let's give it a feel of white to match with the background. You know, there are some advanced features to cut it out and make them both letter P instead of having a different shape, but that comes in another tutorial. Just another cool feature, let's say this letter P, you wanted to make it look cool, you can actually Control D to duplicate it. Let's change it to black. Let's remove this stroke color, let's drag it to the side, and let's send it to the back, and that gives you more like a shade. And let's blur it up a little. Ooh, amazing. Now we have more like a letter P with a shade, and we transform this to this. Thank you very much for watching this video. There are many other videos coming in the future, so do not hesitate to smash the subscribe button and smash the like button. And if you do not understand anything, please leave a comment in the description. I'll be sure to reply to answer your question. Thank you very much for watching. See you on the next video.